Welcome to the Film and Cinematography Podcast. What's up guys, I'm Alex and welcome to a new episode of the Filmmaking and Cinematography Podcast. And today we are going to talk about one of my personal favorite aspects of filmmaking, and this is visual storytelling. So for this one, we are going to talk about my 3 most important tips when it comes to visual storytelling. Of course, there are a bunch of techniques when it comes to visual storytelling, and one episode of this podcast wouldn't be enough to cover all of them. So I chose for this episode the 3 that I, let's say, discovered not pretty early on in my filmmaking days, but further away in the time. The techniques that I, let's say, implemented only in my latest movie or my latest 2 movies. First of all, a really important aspect that I learned only after creating a bunch of short movies and also my first feature is that you need to have a balance between the visual story and the actual story. One of my first short films was a sci-fi movie about a scientist who discovered a pill that teleported the person who took the pill into a whole other world, a sci-fi world. Well, the problem with that movie was that I was concentrated too much on the visual storytelling. Every single shot had something to tell. But you know what the problem with that was? It was that I neglected the actual story, so that even the people who aren't filmmakers and who don't understand and who haven't read the script of the movie would understand it. If you're going to be too concentrated on the actual shots, then you're not going to tell the full story. So you need to have a balance, so that even somebody who will not care at all about the cinematography in film, yeah, there are a bunch of people who care just about the story of the movie and don't give nothing about the visual story and the cinematography. They just see, okay, it's a nice shot, but don't actually understand what happens behind. So this means that we really need to have this balance between the visual story and the actual story. Also for the people who just want to view our movie and just get our nice story, but also for the people who want to get the visual story and are into cinematography. As the next part of visual storytelling, I'm going to talk about symbolic elements. Visual storytelling doesn't just mean what you do with the lights, with the camera movement, and so and so. That's not all that happens in the visual storytelling. I covered this about camera movement and so also in other episodes, and there are going to be a lot more that are going to cover everything regarding the actual cinematography that comes into place doing that with the camera, light, sounds, and so on. But now I want to talk about another aspect, which is symbolic elements. I'm going now to give an example out of my latest documentary, which is White Times. You can already find a link to see this, to see the IMDb page of this movie in the description below. So there is a clock, also on the poster, and also in almost every single scene there appears this clock. In most of the scenes the clock is static, and also of course in the poster. I couldn't have a moving poster. Yeah, it would be also a cool idea, but anyway. This clock was set to the hour 3 o'clock. But also, this particular clock has also a bar which shows the seconds, or the time you should wake up for the alarm clock. Well, it doesn't quite matter. It was a pretty old clock anyway. But why I chose to have these 3? These 3 elements form the following, let's say, shape. One bar is pointed at 12 o'clock, which is like said pointed up. The second one is pointed at 3 o'clock, which symbolizes, in my case, for the people who are going to understand. But this is the way we thought it in, so I thought it in the cinematography, was to symbolize the Holy Trinity, so the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This was particular because my documentary had also something to do with the religion. The theme of the documentary, the person who I interviewed, and also the viewers, or maybe let's say some of the viewers will be older people, and we are covering an aspect of the older generation which are much closer to a religion than we are. Of course, here are exceptions everywhere. Yeah, but as said, coming back to the visual storytelling aspect, this was a small aspect that showed this thing. It was also a symbolic element regarding the hour that the clock, the timing that the clock showed, but it was also an important element because the clock symbolizes time. The title is White Times. And this is an important aspect. As you see, the white, as for the religious stuff, let's say it's the white, the symbol of heaven, the color of heaven, and so. But also the 3 o'clock symbolizes, as said, the Holy Trinity. But also it is very, very important. The clock symbolizes the time passing. Because the clock in some things is also broken. It shows a contrast between old and new, and so on. There are a bunch of important elements that can be dragged on from this symbolic element, which is the clock. Another interesting symbolic element that I used were the chess pieces. Well, as you know, chess is a game of war, a game where you play as if it would be a war on the table. But the chess piece, in my opinion, you can see them also as a family. You know, when they are all together in their, let's say, in their base, they are all like a family. And exactly that's the point. They are not alone, but through the whole scene, one by one, each character of that let's say family disappears, and at the end, just the king remains alone in the middle of the table. It symbolizes again probably a war with the loneliness, but it can also symbolize the family that has grown to be fewer and fewer and fewer people. That's another interesting way to see these symbolic elements. And now, as a last tip, I really want that the people don't underestimate the music. Music in the film is one of the greatest enhancements to the visual storytelling. You can have some great shots, really, really great shots, but if you miss the music, it is worthless. Just imagine an action scene but with calm music, or a calm scene with some action music. The music needs to tell a story. A great example for this one is in my film, where I had a scene where an old guy is going to a factory, an abandoned factory. In the times, in the industrial age, for example, everything went by a clock. Exactly the same symbolic element that went there. It was interesting that the music that I chose for that scene was called Clocks and had the exact rhythm as a clock, each second passing by. And this didn't only tell the story of the factory, but it also told the story about the time. The music told the story. The music told the story that I have shot. And this is really important, because if the music doesn't tell also a story alone without the video, then it's not a good enough music for a movie. It can be great for a commercial, for example, to be nice, to be listened to, but for a movie and for a documentary or a drama or a movie where you have a really strong and powerful emotions and problems and so, then you must have a music that really, really tells a story. A music that not only tells a story, but also holds the story that you want to tell together with the video and the other visual storytelling elements. As a basics, first of all, try to choose the music that fits a scene. Don't go with the first music. Take your time. In my case, it took me 2 months to figure out the perfect music track for the whole movie. And this is a lot. But I took this time so that I am sure that out of millions of and billions of tracks that I could use, that I was able to license, that I would be able actually to license, that those 10 tracks that I chose really told the story of the movie, told the whole story that I wanted to show through the movie. And as said in the previous episode with editing techniques, it is very important to check the music, and not only to check, but to edit the music in by your scenes. So if it's too long, then cut it, but not cut it in the middle and add a fade out. You need to create the music. I often, as a tip, I search for music that not only has a title that symbolizes or a rhythm and or some sounds that symbolizes everything that I need and shows the story, but I also search for some music that has a big part that is pretty low, so let's say not so intense part, but it also has some intense parts, multiple of them even, so that I can cut those intense parts and correspond them to the moment in the scene where I need the intense part. And then I can cut off, for example, the not so intense part and move it to another place. And between those only then add transitions between those and create my own custom music track by the music that a composer has already created and I was able to license it. Yeah, so that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you learned something new today about visual storytelling. So thanks again for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Welcome to the Film and Cinematography Podcast.